Seconds remaining in this segment, and it is Polina with the white pieces trailing by a point.
Yeah, so Wenjun didn't want to deal with another f3 Nimzo, I suppose, so she switches it up with the queen's gambit decline and this early bishop f5. Now white's main move is queen to f3, attacking the bishop, and if the bishop moves, you take on f6. Yes, white gives up the bishop pair, but black is going to have to deal with these double isolated pawns. So generally, white is considered to be ill in this endgame, but black has good drawing chances.
Yeah, and and in the right hands of the black pieces, you can comfortably hold this one. But there we do see the plan. You put the knight on e2 and you just start harassing this bishop on g6. That's why this bishop comes out to d6 to control the f4 square.
Right, so we see g3 by Polina. Let's see what Wenjun is going to do. Here, knight d7, all pretty standard stuff. Knight f4. Yeah, for the moment, white's not really threatening to take on g6, as black can always recapture, and that would actually rectify the black pawn structure. So maybe Polina, although bishop d3, then you take. So we see king f8 by Wenjun, bishop e2, and the king moves to g7, which to me is a little bit unusual. I thought the king would usually sit in the center in this endgame.
Yeah, it usually does that, but I wonder whether Wenjun has ideas of going, aha, she wants to go knight to e6 and trade off the knight.
Right, so let's see what Polina is going to do here. She goes bishop d3, offering the trade of bishops. I think black shouldn't take it. I think black should just sit here with the bishop and kind of make it difficult for white to force a trade. What white can do in this structure is the good old minority attack with rook b1 and then b4, b5 to chip away black's pawn structure. Black generally will play a7, a5 to make it difficult for white, but white usually just plays a3 to follow up with b4 anyway.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see knight to e6 from black just to trade off some pieces?
Well, you would have to calculate bishop takes g6, and I don't know exactly how that plays out. Like, knight takes f4, bishop takes f7, looks problematic, so she trades on f4. I expect white to recapture with the g-pawn. I guess now you trade on d3, otherwise f5, and I guess now f5 with the idea to swing the knight around to f6, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. Is after check, your king is going to have to sit on f6.
Right, but okay, now the idea has come to me because she just wants to put her knight on g6 and just say quick maths. The rook is worth 5, the knight is worth 3. If I can tie the rook down to h1, I will then focus the action on the queen side.
But I like what Polina is doing here. She's going for the minority attack with a4 and b5, aiming to give black a weakness probably on c6. Then she can maybe double up the rooks, hit the pawn. Yes, you're right. I mean, at some point, black is going to go knight here to target this pawn over here, but I don't know. c6 is going to be weak. And this is a tough thing about this endgame. If you make one inaccuracy, it's just a very unpleasant endgame to hold.
Well, we are going to see Wenjun being pushed to the limit because if Polina Shuvalova wins this one, she will tie the score, and this puts her in excellent position for the 3+1. Okay, knight to g6. Target the h-pawn.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by the move rook g1. Yeah, knight g6 looks very logical here, hitting the pawn, and I don't know what Polina has in mind.
I don't see it either. I mean, one thing that I have had done to me in this type of pawn structure is white has gone a5 followed by putting a knight on c5. That was very unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, it looks unpleasant as well, but the drawback is it locks the position up a little bit, right? Especially if black is able to put a knight of themselves on d6. It feels difficult to further improve the position, and I mean, it's definitely a nice idea as well. b5 also a nice idea, because then you have something at least a little bit more tangible to work with.
Yep, but okay, we do see some hesitation there from Wenjun. She's not making the obvious knight to g6, and well, then that begs the question, what is she calculating? Is she maybe thinking that Polina will just go rook to g5 as a response and then go knight to e2, knight to g3?
I think rook g5 makes a ton of sense, because if you take the pawn on h4, there will be rook h1, the knight moves, and then you regain a pawn on h5. That being said, what about this? So let's say white takes on h5, you take, and then rook h8. I mean, I feel like black should have pretty good drawing chances in that knight endgame, and we might see that play out on the board.
Yep, and knight to g6 is what we're expecting. And I agree with you. Go into this knight endgame. The pawn on f5, it's doubled. Yeah, I think black should hold as well, because it's a really locked position. And there's no good entry points for the knight as of yet. Although I say this, if the knight manages to get to b3, then it can jump to c5. c5 and a5 are the kind of entry points.
Right, I'm sure Wenjun is looking at it. You have to calculate what happens after takes and a5. But I think black is just in time to go king e6, knight a4, king d6, knight c5, and king c7. So I'm a little surprised that rook to h8 hasn't been played yet.
Also, what about the consequences if... Okay, knight to e7. No. This is a step in the wrong direction. Rook a6. Sorry, rook h6, maybe knight to e2 is an idea.
Yeah, I think now you have to go knight back, because king g7 runs into rook d6. That looks very dangerous. And yeah, knight g6 on the board. And maybe now a5 followed by knight a4, knight c5 can be pretty dangerous. And Polina goes for it. And 1 minute for Wenjun to figure out a defense.
Not so easy. And this will be the last game at this time control, because the clock has run out. So there we see knight to a4. And we see the women's world champion grimly holding on. She needs to go king to g6. Perhaps she needs to go maybe she actually cannot go king to g6, because knight to c5 and the rook is forced on the defensive.
Yeah, this looks very passive for black, but the question is, can white improve somehow? I don't know. I don't see an easy plan for white to improve here. And maybe black just sits with king g7, king g6, king g7. You would love to go knight c8 to d6, but I don't... Oh, wait. Maybe you can. Maybe you can go knight c... No, wait, but you can't. Because look at this. After knight c8, take king g6, there's take and knight d7.
Yes, I was just going to point that out. I've been trying to work out knight to c8 for a while now. But one thing I was also curious about is this pawn on f5. Maybe you can give it up. Maybe you can just sacrifice it and then try to go for some knight d6, f5 clamps. But okay, there's no need, especially if you can just shuffle your king to g6 and g7. If you're happy with the draw, let's play in the most simplest way.
I mean, I think black certainly should be happy with the draw here, as it feels like white's better. But yeah, I don't see a good plan to improve. So we see f2, f3 by Polina, but I don't think that e4 push should ever be that effective. So I think you just have to sit with king g6 and king g7. Oh, but maybe this is what you can do, Jovi. You go king g6 and now king g7. Not knight c8 right now, as it runs with the rook h8, but king g7. And now the positional threat, so to speak, is to go knight c8 to d6.
Yep. And that's why we're seeing some checks there from Polina. She's resuming the threat of rook to h7, king to g7. Is there any angle where she could jump in with the knight? I mean, first up, we've got to calculate the pawn break though, e4.
Right, but I think black just takes everything and then gets a very nice d5 square for her own knight. So I don't really see it playing out in white's favor. I think Polina just needs to keep the game going somehow, but it's hard. And yeah, black would love to get the knight at d6, because then the knight is defending that b7 square, and so the rook will have a little bit more room to move. Maybe black can then offer the trade of rooks with rook h8.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what black wants to do. And it's up to Polina whether she's satisfied with the draw or whether she wants to try for more, but it's not entirely clear what to do, especially moves such as e4. are just not working because they carry a lot of risk. But 27
Yeah.
seconds there for Wenjun.
Yeah, I'm sure Polina would love to go for the win here, but I don't wait. King G7, but I don't see a good way to do so because, yeah, I mean, she is definitely better. She has more time and she's behind in the match, so she cannot be quite happy with the draw here. But again, I don't see a good plan to break through.
So maybe we can revisit e4 because it's the only breakthrough in the position. So e4, take on e4, king takes on e4, and if you jump in with your knight to d5, then maybe king to f5 is dangerous at the very least.
All right, so after E4 takes. Oh, wow.